could do the weekend before.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf. I'm live here at Daily Cloud in Civic Hall, broadcasting from Civic Hall in New York. And it's a really big broadcast today. Very, very important. I feel a little bit like kind of Paul Revere in the digital era saying, really stop, pay attention. There's a huge bill or resolution that may be a hair's breadth from becoming the law of the land, which I'll get to in just a minute. A couple of quick announcements, promoting what we're doing in the next few days. Very, very exciting. Last Friday here at Civic Hall, we hosted George Newell. So he is kind of the father of everything you see behind me and around me, everyone in America who's using technology or the news media or television or the internet to explain democracy better. He was the creator of Schoolhouse Rock, and he and Tom Yohe created an entity that brought Schoolhouse Rock to ABC and then to everyone in America. And so those of you who grew up in the 70s and 80s will remember, how can you forget, classics where he took, really important concepts like the separation of powers in America, or how a bill becomes a statute with his classic Just a Bill, or the preamble, which so many people, learned their several people said I got into law school because I, remembered that song about the preamble from Schoolhouse Rock. And he used animation, cartoons, really ahead of his time, and really accomplished musicians, jazz musicians, and soloists to, create this really inspired music to help school children across America learn about America and learn about our separation of powers and learn about how a bill becomes a law, learn about what the founders intended, kind of basic civics, but made to go down really easily. It was absolutely incredible hosting him and his lovely wife, Lisa Maxwell, here at Civic Hall. She's an accomplished lyricist and musician in her own right, also spent time in the advertising space as he did. That's where they met. But it was incredible, really. We were also starstruck hosting him here at Civic Hall, hosting them both, because all these people kept coming up to us when we were having lunch and saying, telling beautiful stories about how Schoolhouse Rock had empowered them as children and young adults. We heard stories ranging from one of our co-founders here at Civic Hall, Olivia, had come from Poland as a 9-year-old child not speaking English, and she had learned English by watching Schoolhouse Rock. And Jessica Goldfarb, another Civic Hall founder, said that she had learned about democracy from Schoolhouse Rock, and now as the mother of a young daughter, her daughter was, her set piece was to sing the preamble to admiring relatives, so the second generation. And my own partner has a 6-year-old son, and after we had George Newell here, his 6-year-old kind of has sometimes needs extra focus to master certain concepts, and with Schoolhouse Rock he's now become, a next generation has become addicted to this fantastic educational way of communicating. But back to Civic Hall and Daily Clout, George Newell and Schoolhouse Rock really imprinted me as a child when I was watching cartoons on Saturday morning. I didn't know it was George Newell, I just knew it was these characters, and Just a Bill and Little Bill on Capitol Hill. It inspired us to create Daily Clout, quite directly, because I remembered that civics in middle school made you want to kill yourself. It was so boring, but Schoolhouse Rock was so engaging, and it respected children, and it really, as I said to Mr. Newell, when I, as a fangirl, was kind of blushing and, stammering, trying to tell him how excited I was to meet him, it kind of taught me as a child that the culture thinks these things are important, because it was like after Scooby-Doo, it was on television, and that also the culture cared about me as a child learning about the separation of powers, about the founders, about the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and communicating it in an easy and fun way. And that's what we're all about now. We're carrying on that important work in our own digital way to we hope a new generation as well. So thank you, George Newell. Thank you, Lisa Maxwell. And it's been, a huge honor to have you. Also, a bit of a promo for later in the week. As you know, Haley Snyder and I went to DC the week before last for another big event, which was our first congressional interview. So Haley sat down with Representative French Hill, a Republican of Arkansas. And Haley has been also kind of an admirer because, we are nonpartisan, but we're allowed to have our own opinions, and we clearly label those as opinion. So she wrote an opinion piece for the Huffington Post about French Hill's bill that would give convicted felons who paid their debt to society scholarship money matched by historically black universities and colleges, so that these people leaving prison after paying their debt to society can get an education at historically black colleges. So Haley loved it. She we do become kind of, legislation nerds here at Daily Cloud, and we all have our personal favorites. And so the bill, Haley pointed out in her original piece that not that this should matter in an ideal world, but that Representative French Hill is not a person of color, is a Caucasian legislator, and also that it was introduced just by Representative Hill, and I think that she hoped to have more diversity, with people moving it forward, because it's certainly going to affect, people, as any bill does in America, people of all different backgrounds, and because it has this hook of the historically African-American colleges. So it was very exciting to Haley that the bill has been reintroduced with a Democratic co-sponsor named Cedric Richmond, who is an African-American legislator from Louisiana. So there's a lot to love. Again, we're nonpartisan, but it's, we also want to kind of show you what you don't see in the horse race coverage, which is really exciting, underreported stories about people actually, getting things done and actually crossing party lines, crossing the aisle in order to co-sponsor a bill that is, quite innovative, supporters would say. So the bill's been reintroduced. It's called the Shift Back to Society Act, and you're going to see footage of Haley Snyder, 21 years old, interviewing Representative French Hill, who was very gracious. He and his team, made time in his busy schedule and sat down with our Haley and shared with her, Representative Hill shared with her his motivation for solving the problem of recidivism, meaning people going back to prison, in this innovative way. And she was able to ask, more detailed follow-up questions. And one of the things that was exciting that emerged was, what's really interesting to us is with legislators, what are the transition points where they get inspired to craft a bill in a certain way. And Representative Hill did talk a lot, and you'll see this in our video, about this transition when people leave prison. And he made it it was very moving, because he said people are leaving prison with $30 and a change of clothes, And whatever your view of this bill, whatever your politics, I think a lot of people will want to think about what that means, to start a whole new life, try to start with a clean slate after a felony conviction with $30 and a change of clothing. So this bill does give matching educational funds, federal funds, to historically black colleges. And it's a really, interesting way to solve this problem of people leaving prison, a lot of them young men, disproportionately, and as Michelle Alexander and other critics have pointed out, disproportionately young people of color, young men of color, now can have matching funds from historically black colleges to get an education, to start over better, many would say. Critics, because we try to be nonpartisan, critics might say of this bill, it's hard enough to go to college, it's really expensive, even if you haven't broken the law. So why should people who have been convicted of a crime get this special help? So that's a debate that we can have when Haley and I post this bill later in the week after the editing process is done. All right, now to 4-alarm, 5-star alert, whatever the way we want to kind of identify that this is something you should not miss. Very critical day, very, very critical action on Capitol Hill. The headline here on the Daily Clout Shout, where we write about this, I've written about it, is Congress just voted to let internet providers sell your private search history. Wow. I mean, I want you to look at this bill, look at this blog, and see if you are shocked. This kind of sneaked in with very little debate, very little media coverage. I hadn't known about it till Haley called my attention to it, and thank God she did. On March 28th, the Senate passed a joint resolution. So Senator Jeff Flake, a Republican from Arizona, proposed it, and it changes a prior law about how the FCC asks your internet service provider to handle your personally identifiable data online, right? Including things as sensitive as your search history, what you look for online. All right. So the consensus is that this resolution's immediate effect allows internet service providers to sell your browsing history, to monetize your search history, your personally identifiable search history and private data. The joint resolution was proposed in January of this year, and really I haven't seen debate about it, and I follow these things. Maybe you have, I haven't, because I think a lot of people would have a lot of strong feelings about having AT&T, Verizon, Yahoo, Google sell their personal, here's what Naomi was looking for last week online, right? Here's what Joe searched. Here's exactly where, every keystroke of what Joe was looking for. I mean, not any particular Joe, Joe, Ann, Smith, anyone, Biff. What you were looking for, what I was looking for. Now, something else really interesting about this joint resolution is it's particularly, and I would say alarmingly, hard to find online. Daily Clout's mission is to make these bills easily findable, usable, understandable for you and your elected officials, but really for you, right? For you to give the process back to you. So when you look at Congress.gov, which before BillCam, which we created, was kind of the best access you had to live legislation, federal legislation, something kind of tricky happens. If you look on your desktop, it'll say that the resolution did pass in both the House and the Senate. But at 12:13 p.m. today, which is Wednesday, March 29th, we looked at the same site, Congress.gov, on our phones and on the desktop, and they said two different things. And most people, search on mobile. And on mobile, it said that it didn't pass both houses, both chambers, the House and the Senate. On mobile, it said that it only passed the House, right? So at 12:13 today, it said on mobile that it had only passed the Senate, not both chambers. Correction. So that is to me alarming. I think the federal government should be very accurate, just like any news organization should, about did it or didn't it pass both chambers, right? It's a very different status if it has passed both chambers versus if it hasn't. And thanks to George Newell, most of us know, if you watch Schoolhouse Rock, how a bill becomes a law. And it has to pass both chambers. So, in addition, this bill, or this joint resolution, Senate joint resolution, it's kind of opaque because, like a lot of bills, it amends an earlier document, right? And something that I have been kind of outraged about here at Daily Clout, and what we aim to solve as a problem, is that a lot of bills, you can't really understand them because you get the amendment, but you don't see what it's amending. So this resolution is amending or condemning Chapter 8, Title 5 of the United States Code. But when Congress.gov links back to that document, which is what this amends, the document that protected your privacy, as I understand it, about your internet search history, this is what you get. I don't know if you can see this. Haley, would you take a look if I'm showing this? You get a dead link. You can't see the statute or the FCC Chapter 8, Title 5 of the United States Code, meaning laws that have passed, protecting your privacy. It's gone. You can't see it online. I don't know why. I'm not attributing motivation. It's a broken link. It happens. It's the internet, but you can't see this hugely, hugely impactful change in your protection online. So let's step back. What do other organizations that deal with internet privacy have to say about this joint resolution? The Electronic Frontier Foundation, which I trust a lot as a source, very credible organization, says that this joint resolution allows internet organizations that offer you internet services like Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, whoever provides it for you, to, quote, harvest your personal information in extraordinarily creepy ways. They will watch your every action online and create highly personalized and sensitive profiles for the highest bidder, all without your consent. This breaks with the decades-long legal tradition that your communications provider is never allowed to monetize your personal information without asking your permission first. Right? So think about that. Whether you support this bill or not, the EFF says it is going to harvest your personal information in extraordinarily creepy ways. Now let me repeat, Congress.gov, a government reporting site, right, is saying both that it has passed both chambers and that it hasn't, as of our last checking at 12:13 this afternoon. And EFF is warning what will happen if this passes both and then is signed into law by the president. Also important to understand, EFF points out, is that this harms United States cybersecurity because now American companies have vast repositories of personally identifiable data about U.S. citizens' search histories. And even more startlingly, according to the EFF, this resolution will allow large internet providers to demand of consumers a, quote, privacy tax if you want to protect your privacy the way the code that this resolution amends used to protect your privacy. So you'll need to pay a tax if you don't want everyone to be able to buy Naomi's personal search history or Haley's personal search history or your personal search history. So everyone seems to agree that President Trump has to still sign this bill for it to become a law. So now, as opposed to the United States website, Congress.gov, Gizmodo and other news sites are reporting that this joint resolution has in fact quietly passed both chambers. And Gizmodo says it does in fact let any internet user's browsing history, personally identifiable browsing history, let me say that over and over, not metadata, not like big picture, but your history, your porn sites, right? Your whatever private thing, your shopping addiction, your searches for, lithium, for your mood disorder, like whatever embarrassing thing, your affair correspondence, right? Your weird kinky fetish. I don't know what you might want to keep private online, but whatever it is, or just personal communications, personal dissent, right? I mean, all of that is now monetizable. It's in the marketplace once President Trump signs this resolution into law. So, Gizmodo confirms that this can now be scooped up by ISP, internet service providers, used and sold. And then, critics, the EFF and the ACLU are, quite horrified, as you can imagine. We try to be nonpartisan, but looking online, it was hard for us to find quotes from supporters of this bill, because there weren't any that we could find. And I believe, just knowing, how Congress works with bills that might be extraordinarily unpopular, and I speak as a former political consultant, it's possible, no way to know for sure, that the possible huge unpopularity of a bill that lets AT&T and Comcast and Verizon and Google and your ISP provider sell your data, personally identifiable data, might be the reason that it's been so quietly, moved ahead so quietly. So you can see at dailycloud.io the joint resolution's full text, which is only 2 pages long. As we pointed out, you know, you really need to kind of see the link in order to see what it's amending, and that link is dead. But you can read our blog post, which cites organizations such as the Electronic Frontier Foundation, sites such as Gizmodo, and also references Congress.gov, which is the government official site, to show you what this joint resolution will do. And so Diane Herbert, we're getting lots of comment already. Diane Hebert, I beg your pardon. Lots of comment, and believe me, let people know that we're talking about this. Let people know that this joint resolution has either passed both chambers or passed one, depending on which version of Congress.gov you're looking at on your phone or on the computer. And in our dailycloud.io blog post, we also give you President Trump's Twitter handle, President Trump's POTUS Twitter, which means official, President of the United States Twitter. We give you the White House visitors line in case you want to visit President Trump and let him know directly how you feel about AT&T and Verizon selling your personal search history, because it's like one signature away from becoming the law of the land. And also Jeff Flake, right, introduced this joint resolution, and we give you Jeff Flake's Twitter handle, which is, I believe, at Jeff Flake. It's right there at dailycloud.io. And also you can use our bill cam in any of our blogs. You can use the bill cam to find your representatives' Twitter and tweet your representative. All right? So, call those folks, tweet those folks. I personally think it's a lot more impactful to tweet them because it's public, and to use the data we give you to tweet them, as opposed to calling them, because there's a lot of firewalls in place in Congress to kind of keep legislators from getting too bombarded by the actual opinions of their actual constituents and the nation as a whole. But you've got to talk about this. You have to. I mean, that's it. I mean, I'm wrapping up. So Diane Hebert says, what does she say? She says, we need to keep a public list of the congressmen who voted for it and share everywhere. I think that's exactly right. We're not a partisan site, but we do report news about legislation and activity, both at the State House level and in Congress at the federal level. And it's pretty newsworthy to me as a journalist and as someone who cares about democracy to let everybody know, who voted for this, who proposed it, who signed on to it, who took action on this. Absolutely critical, and who resisted it. This is critical to know. And if you like the bill or the joint resolution, you can support that person who moved that forward once we post their names, which we're gonna try to do here at Daily Cloud. And if you don't like it, you will know, and you will be able then to act the way our founders intended you to act. Thank you, George McGruel, for explaining this in the 70s and 80s through Schoolhouse Rock, by making sure that that elected official knows that he or she cannot count on your vote the next time around. And by the way, it's especially impactful if you say to your own elected representative or to the bill sponsor or the person who supported this bill to sell your private browsing history online, right? To let your personally identifiable search history be sold to the highest bidder, right? It doesn't matter that much if you don't vote in congressional elections for you to be upset or happy. It matters a lot if you vote in congressional elections. They have that data. It's public data to them, right? Only 18% of people vote in congressional elections in off years. The more you vote in congressional elections, especially if you vote, religiously, then you can say in your tweet, I vote in congressional elections, and they will check it, or their staff will check it, if it's an impactful enough response. And that is truly huge, to elected officials, to people who depend on your vote to squeak through every 2 years, right? It actually, our informants on Capitol Hill say that for people to vote in congressional elections and then say that they're voting, right, is it's been described as a nuclear explosion, electorally, that it gives you as much power as lobbyists and special interests to actually vote in congressional elections. So I'm here saying do it, and then tell people in your tweet, I voted for you in the last congressional election, or I didn't vote for you, but I vote. Right? And you can't lie about it. Like, they'll know. They have lists. All right. I mean, you could try, but it's not a good idea. Alicia de Grey Isa Lasso says they are looking to see what the public is thinking and buying. In parentheses, survivalist, home canning, homesteading, urban gardening, so they can send in jackboots and disappear people, totalitarian tiptoe. I mean, that's strong language, Alicia, but we have the First Amendment. You can say whatever you want. But, even though some people might say that that's kind of an extreme projection of what people might search for with your browsing history, absolutely, what people like the ACLU and the EFF are scared about a step like this is that, it'll be used for political reasons. Maybe you expressed criticism of agricultural methods that Monsanto doesn't like, or maybe you have a search history as an extremely dedicated environmentalist. The danger is that by monetizing your personal search history, people can basically put you on a list, right? Like right now we don't have jackboots at the door, yet, but the danger of people's inner thoughts being bought and sold, not just by private industry, who would want to advertise to survivalists if they're selling survivalist-oriented, content, but also, other people in power, right? Corporate entities and also government entities could buy these lists or acquire these lists, right? Acquire your search history. So I personally don't want to be in the dissident, list or any list. I don't want to be on any list as an American. I'm not partisan here. I'm just saying as an American, let's think about our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. Again, not partisan. I always like to say my client is the Constitution. The Fourth Amendment is the one that guarantees privacy. And the Fourth Amendment forbids the government from any unreasonable search and seizure, unreasonable violation of your privacy. A lot of people might argue that this joint resolution, which is one signature away from being the law of the land, does let the government as well as the marketplace have unreasonable search and seizure, basically of your history of what you're doing on your computer. That people have an assumption of privacy. When they search online, that's a legal term. You assume, it's reasonable to assume that when you're at home on your personal internet that you pay for, your search is private. Now, and what's interesting to me as an investigative reporter is how far back does it go? Is it retrospective or retroactive? Is everyone who's ever done a kinky search now going to be really, embarrassed or subject to blackmail or mortified as anyone who's ever joined a dating site when they were married? What sort of vulnerability does that put them into? And as I wrote about at the end of America, which I published in 2008, about how democracy erodes, the real worry, there's a lot of real worries, but a real worry for elected officials in a democracy is that in a closed society, elected officials' personal secrets are exposed or tracked or spied on, and it then subjects them to pressure, to blackmail, right? That's why, for instance, homosexuality used to be something that elected officials could be blackmailed about, right? No longer, obviously. But elected officials are always, in a closed society, targeted with pressure using their personally embarrassing secrets. And the beauty of privacy and the Fourth Amendment, the beauty of a real democracy is that people can have a private life as long as they don't obey, I beg your pardon, as long as they're not breaking the law. They can have a private life, they can have personal space, they can do things in private that they might not want on the front page of the New York Times, but as long as they're not breaking the law, that's between them and their conscience, or them and their spouse, or them and their partner, whatever, them and their therapist. This would make every, certainly current and future search histories trafficked, traded, possibly public. It wouldn't have guarantees around privacy once it's in the marketplace, and it might even go back, right? So A lot of people might be watching this and being very concerned. Tracy Davenport says, a good idea had been offered on this thread. It's personal property. I should be compensated for the sale of it. Well, that is an interesting way to talk back to this joint resolution. That if people are going to be buying and selling your search history, you should get a cut. It's certainly valuable content. And by the way, I just want to say this goes to actually what we're doing as a company, because Daily Cloud has privacy protections in place for you. When you search BillCam, we don't sell your data, right? We don't do it. We want an option where you can opt in case, if you are interested in green zoning, elected officials or candidates or challengers who want green zoning can find you with your permission, but we protect your private search history. I think that we're going to need to ramp up in this environment, if this bill joint resolution becomes the law of the land, the protections that we can guarantee to users of Daily Cloud and BillCam. It affects us too as a company. Dawn Lundberg says, interesting, usually we have mostly men talking, and I have to say, women join this discussion. Interestingly, I've written about how the internet allows women a leadership role because you can kind of be powerful behind a keyboard and be talky behind a keyboard. We're getting a lot of women speaking up. Dawn Lundberg says, I suppose that soon when neighbors pay $9.99 or whatever to get the details on their neighbors, they will also be able to get this information maybe for a few more dollars. I guess transparency is a double-edged sword, but it should be transparency for all, especially the leaders. That's a very, very interesting point. I mean, I think it's, if this marketplace opens up, it is only a matter of time and probably not long in capitalism before you can pay more to enter someone's personal name and get their personal search history. I don't think this market will be restricted to just giant advertisers and giant corporations trying to reach you to see if you, I have a ridiculous amount of searching of home decorating sites. This is my personal vice. I'm always searching Wayfair and Jocelyn Main. This is not product placement. That's if you look at my search history, it's this is my therapy, right? In between writing about democracy, I'm looking at curtains on, it's just relaxing for me. But, that's kind of embarrassing if that were ever to be shown in an infographic, what Naomi Wolf's relationship to decorating websites is. I'm supposed to be a serious political commentator, and I'm always looking at decorating websites. I mean, that's not by any means the most extreme sense of anxiety people watching this are going to be having about their personal search histories, but everything we do online says who we are, right? And not everything we do online is something that we want to have be public. And yeah, it's I keep thinking of George Orwell, if everything we do online is public, it's like taking our brains and putting our brains out into public space, like in The Matrix or like in 1984. And yeah, Big Brother, or really anyone who can pay for it, will be able to access my brain online, when I thought it was private. Yeah, go ahead. What else? So Daniel Volpe says, why is this justified at all outside of another money-making scheme and invasion of privacy? Daniel, that's a great question. I think you should be tweeting that to Jeff Flake. We're nonpartisan, so I can't say I totally agree with you. This is outrageous. It's justified. It's how is it justified? In a democracy, if most people don't want it, it shouldn't be justified, right? Because that's what a democracy is supposed to do. The silence, the stealthy nature of this bill and this resolution, the fact that you can't really see it, right? Again, this is what it's modifying. Let's hold that up. Can you see the dead link? You can't see on Congress.gov, the original protection, the original law that protects your privacy. And you can barely understand, and we've got it at Daily Cloud I/O, the amendment, thank God for the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the ACLU, because otherwise it would be very hard for us to know about this at all. But I think in a democracy, I would bet as a political consultant, using that part of my brain, former political consultant, that this wouldn't be that popular a bill. I don't know that the bill sponsors and the people who have signed the bill, the resolution, would be really delighted to have their constituents know who they are and what they've done. We'll see, because we're here making it public. That's our mission. Maybe it'll be popular. Maybe people will get used to it. Maybe they're so jaded that they don't care. I'd be surprised. But I think the answer to Daniel's question, and thank you, Daniel Volk, for writing in, is that it benefits like a handful, and Gizmodo made this point, a handful of very powerful, wealthy corporations who provide your internet and can now sell everything you and everyone has done or is doing on the internet to everyone who's trying to reach you, or know about it, or sell to you. So it creates a gigantic market for 5 or 6 companies that you pay your internet bill to. All right, Diane Hebert adds a comment. Thank you, Diane, for picking up. Besides the monetary factor, I think that many Republicans would like to shut down social networking. It has been very effective for organizing. This could discourage people from using it. So it's a really interesting point. I would want to extend it. Again, we're nonpartisan. This definitely privileges those in power and disprivileges people who are trying to get power, right? And it privileges people who own the data, and it disempowers those whose data is being bought and sold. So it creates that imbalance of power. I don't see it as Republican versus Democrat. I see it as a few stakeholders who now have a lot more power over everyone else. If this joint resolution, very opaque, very hidden joint resolution, we at Daily Clout have done you the service of bringing it to your attention on dailyclout.io. If this becomes the law of the land, which is one signature away or one chamber passing the bill on away from becoming the law of the land, depending on where you look. So I have to sign off now, sadly, because it seems like people have a lot to say, but please don't be passive. Do what the founders asked you to do. Again, a shout out to George Newell of Schoolhouse Rock. Do what you may have learned to do watching Schoolhouse Rock when you were a kid on Saturday morning cartoons. You are responsible. You are responsible for having your say about whether you want your internet service provider to have everything you looked at online and sell it, right? And have no privacy protections around it. You might like that, in which case use our bill cam to find out who your representative is, who the bill sponsor is. Go to dailyclout.io and tell them how you feel. You might hate this joint resolution. Talk to President Trump. He wants to hear from you. He's been talking to us. You talk to him. Go visit at the White House. Call the visitors line at the White House. Go have your say. And absolutely let Jeff Flake know, right? He brought this through. His name is on it, right? No more shadows. If Jeff Flake wants to hear people say what a great idea, let him know. And if people say this is a terrible idea, let them know you really need to be a patriot now. You really need to step up and engage in the debate around this bill, or this joint resolution before it becomes the law of the land. This is Naomi Wolf from Daily Clout here at Civic Hall. Thank you so much, and please tune in tomorrow. Go to Daily Clout and share this bill. Do you want your internet history sold in the marketplace? Thank you so much. Take care.